Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, lovely people, lovers of freedom all over the world. Biafrans, wherever you are welcome to this wonderful YouTube platform that gives you the updated news and information every time we dey drop the back-to-back info as it dey happen for Biafraland. This is Let's Talk TV, your Ogbonge YouTube channel, where they always give the news as it dey hot. If you're joining us for the first time, you know what to do, and also make sure you click on that bell so that you will be definitely notified whenever we drop our spanking news. Now, straight to the broadcast that everybody has been waiting for. This is the State of the Union broadcast that Prime Minister Simon Èkpá dropped, where you know he has actually given a very critical order, to Biafrans. And if you're listening to the sound of my voice, it's not just about playing this video and keeping it to yourself. You should also play, and while playing, you should share because there are critical information regarding the self referendum voting that will be starting tomorrow. So many important and critical information that Biafrans needs to know, even those who do not love Biafrans, because they need to know the order. Both haters and lovers of freedom, they need to know the haters. If you're residing in Biafran territory and you're listening to this particular video, you have to share it so that they will know what the Prime Minister Èkpá, is saying to avoid had I known. The next voice you'll be hearing is that of the Prime Minister of the Biafran Republic government in exile, the one and only Prime Minister Simon Èkpá. Enjoy this live broadcast and do not forget to do the needful. Also continue to support us in any way you can so that we will keep on giving you the back-to-back news and information and updates on all the matter where they happen for Biafran territory. Enjoy.
Good evening, lovers of freedom. Good evening, the friends of Biafrans all over the world that have seated this evening to listen to the State of the Union address by the Prime Minister of the Biafra Republic Government in Exile, officially the United States of Biafra. I welcome you all, ladies and gentlemen of the press, to this evening historic speech. We will be addressing a lot of issues, especially the new face of the Biafra liberation as we prepare to go to the poll for the Biafra self-referendum, which is starting on the 1st of February 2024. This evening's speech by my humble self will be focused on the evolution of freedom and human rights. And I will be making references to different heroes and heroines of this world. The evolution of freedom and human rights. On behalf of the Biafra government in exile, I appreciate Biafrans for their unwavering support so far. I also call on Biafrans world over to stand firm and continue to stand with the Biafra government, both in the exile and in the de facto government of the homeland, as we embark on a next phase of our liberation, which is self-referendum. I want to remind us today, however, how our heroes and heroines of the past changed our world today, starting from as far back as 1380, over 630 years. Some of us who may be very conversant about freedom fighting may have come across a very famous speech made by John Ball titled "All Men by Nature Were Created Alike." Evolution of Freedom. In May 1381, Wycliffe priest called John Ball addressed a group of rebelling laborers who would later take part in the so then called Peasant Revolt, a revolt that was partly caused by the introduction of the 1380 tax. In his great speech, Ball argued that all men by nature were created alike, that the servitude of agricultural workers continued what he called an unjust oppression. He argued they serve to cast off the yoke of bondage and recover liberty. They should fight for equality in liberty and battle against degree, nobility, and class. It is these words that are often cited as the inspiration for the June 1381 revolt led by Tyler. Today, these ideas may sound pretty normal to us and many of you 21st century humans. But the truth is that this speech was made over 630 years ago, when it was considered very dangerous to even think that such thing should be said by anyone, let alone preach it. That's why this speech is very important in freedom fighting. Sadly, both Ball and Taylor were executed for this word as traitors for their egalitarian views. They were killed because their pro-socialist and progressive belief were seen as a threat 630 years ago. They saw them and their speeches as a threat to the established order of the society. Still, their actions and their words live on. Their word that was considered dangerous, that led to their death, has become part of human rights laws that we all enjoy today, but they died for it. It is not because they were killed, but indeed their views has become part of international laws for a progressive world. This I would say, was a foundation of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, that all men are equal, but Ball and Tyler died for saying and advocating for it. That is evolution of freedom and human rights. What was abolished, what was a dangerous thing 630 years ago, has become your law today, because somebody stood and said it. That's why, as a Prime Minister of the Biafra Republic Government in Exile, it does not matter what you call me today. What matters to me is what you call me after 10 years, when I have liberated my people. This is the reason many countries like Finland, who are well advanced, can't hand Simon Èkpá over to any terrorist country, like Nigeria, for standing firm, fighting and defending his people. And I stand to the challenge anywhere. Finland is living in the future. It's a fact. My fellow Biafrans, let me remind you that there is another great speech called "Let Us Make Reparation to Africa." Reparation is today word that many human rights activists, many freedom fighters are preaching freely, including the government that killed for such word. Reparation to Africa was first made by William Wilberforce. William Wilberforce was an 18th century British politician, famed for his battle against the slave trade. On the 12th of May, 1789, Wilberforce addressed the House of Commons. With a fearful precision, he argued them to vote for the slave trade abolition in the British Empire, citing inhuman practices as an effusion of human blood. Then, the advocacy of Wilberforce was so dangerous, become a threat to the British Empire. 2 years before Wilberforce made the speech, 132 African slaves were thrown into the sea from a slave ship. Hence, the reference to human blood. He criticized the use of violence and tyranny among seamen and merchants towards slaves, and cited his belief in the commandment, "Thou shalt not murder," as the source of his abolitionist belief. Wilberforce also argued, "Thou shalt do no murder," as the source of his abolitionist belief. He argued that such cruel trade could not possibly be regulated or conducted in a human way. Total abolition is the only possible cure, he argued. This speech made by Wilberforce made any plea of ignorance on the part of his fellow MPs at the House of Commons of the United Kingdom, made them untenable. The callousness of the slave trade was revealed for all to see for the very first time. The campaign of Wilberforce and others to bring to an end to slavery was a very hard fight. They fought it. This speech was a significant moment in bringing about the British West Indies in 1807 and the Slavery Abolition Act in 1833, which abolished slavery throughout the British Empire. This is evolution of freedom. I want you to pay attention to today's State of the Union, where we are making history the way it is, to make sure we save our people from the hand of the Nigeria Islamic State. We will make a very tough decisions as we move on from today going forward. This decision will later become history. So I'm making references to the other heroes and heroines of this world, who at the time of their own freedom fighting, everything they did became abominable, only for what they did to become the law that guides the universe today. It is the evolution of freedom fighting and freedom. It is important to educate our people while we are taking the steps of the Biafra government. The Biafra government are taking the step it's taking today, is that we have figured out what will work for us against Nigeria. It is also very important to educate our people how history are made as we go to the poll for our self-referendum, because they continue to ask, is US supporting you? Is America supporting you? Do you have a European Union observers? And I have told them we don't need any of those observers. We are conducting this referendum by ourselves, and we are going to declare Biafra, defend it with every mechanism that we have, and it will go down in history as Biafran used every mechanism to liberate themselves from Nigeria Islamic State. In the United States, a woman had no right to vote in an election until a woman called Susan Anthony fought for it. Somebody somewhere have to always stood up and fight. Somebody somewhere had always stood up to fight before change could happen. That is exactly what the Prime Minister of Biafra Republic Government in Exile, Simon Èkpá, and the entire cabinet and the entire government in exile are doing today. Somebody somewhere have to start this fight, and it will be successful at the end of the day. When you remain resolute and never change your principle according to who you meet. The question Susan Anthony asked in one of her famous speech was, are women person? Susan Anthony was an American suffragette and a co-founder of the National Women Suffrage Association, a group that fought for women's right to vote in the United States. In 1872, she became the first American woman to vote in an election. Listen, just 1872, women didn't have the right to vote in America. 1872. This woman took it upon herself to fight and liberated women from the shackles of the American system that made them lesser human. She became the first American woman to vote in an election, albeit illegally. She was charged in January of 1873 for voting without a lawful right to vote. Though she wasn't allowed to speak, even to defend herself in the court. She made this speech of our women person in the month running up to her trial. In the speech, she argued that in voting, she was simply exercising her right, citizens' right. Quoting the U.S. Constitution, she pointed out that it was not the white male citizens that formed the Union of the State of America, but we, the people, and that as a person, she deserved the right to participate in democracy. Are women person? She famously asked. If so, she then argued, they are citizens of the United States. Why then should they not have the right to vote? I want you to listen to understand the evolution of freedom. Before she did it, nobody ever stood up to fight for women's rights to vote in the United States. She took it upon herself, and today women can vote. But it wasn't only women. It wasn't only women's rights that she campaigned for. She also argued that black people should have right to vote, since they also are persons and choose U.S. citizens. This idea of personhood may seem very simple, but Susan Anthony's argument points out the absurdity of women exclusion from democracy. In this United States, many of you are enjoying today as women and voting and kicking against the freedom of Biafra. Equality before the law was her radical aspiration. Despite despite her cogent argument, she was found guilty. She was found guilty for rising up against the system that excluded women right to vote. She was found guilty in the United States Court of Law and was fined $100. To show her commitment to what she believed in, to her cause, she refused to pay that fine of $100. You know what is $100? As far back as 1870 something. $100. That should be millions of dollars today. She refused to pay that fine and continued to campaign ferociously for female suffrage, a battle that was eventually won in 1919. From 1870 something to 1919, she won the battle against the women exclusion in the United States democracy. Today, many Biafrans in the United States, many Biafrans of Nigeria, because the Biafrans in the United States are supporting what we're doing today. Many women from Biafra of Nigeria are enjoying the voting right in America, but a woman like you fought for it. My respect to those Biafran women who are deeply involved in the Biafra government. You are making history as part of the evolution of freedom for a better society. Suzanne Best quote, "I declare to you that women must not depend on the protection of man, but must taught to protect herself. And there I take my stand." This was one of the best quotes of Susan Anthony. Today, this Suzanne quote has become the policy and the law of Finland. The reason you can't touch me in Finland, Finland understands the evolution of freedom, and it is my right to fight and protect my people, and that I will do until our freedom is achieved. While in Africa today, many countries in Africa are against same-sex marriage. I want you to understand the evolution of freedom because of our culture in Africa. But let me remind you that America was there centuries ago. Where Africa is today, America was there centuries ago. And let me also make it very clear, I am not advocating for same-sex marriage. I am only taking you back to the history and the evolution of freedom. This, what American government, including the President of America, is supporting today. Of course, not Donald Trump. But those, Obama, Biden, and co, supporting today was abomination in America centuries ago. A man called Oscar Wilde, in his speech, "Love that dare not speak its name." This renewed speech by Oscar Wilde, made during his trial for gross indecency with other male persons. This is perhaps one of the most emotional and poignant speech ever made. In it, Wilde Oscar described his love for Lord Alfred Douglas as such a great affection of an elder man for a young man. Choose the love that dare not speak its name. He described his love as beautiful, fine, and noblest form of affection. But Wilde Oscar explained the word does not understand it. He explained that the world back then does not understand it. Indeed, they mock his love as unnatural and unlawful. But wild speech proved just the opposite, that there is, in fact, nothing like unnatural about it. After the speech, the atheist Max Weber told a friend that Oscar's speech was simply wonderful and carried the whole court right away, quite tremendous burst of applause. But in all the applauses given to Wilde, it was not enough. A second trial, Wilde was sentenced to 2 years in prison with hard labor for nothing other than his attraction to a member of the same sex. It was this time in prison that led to his tragic death. He died in prison a few years later. But today, the present and the past president of the United States of America are in the forefront, championing same-sex marriage, that somebody was sentenced to death and the person 2 years with hard labor and the person died in prison. Obama, Biden, and many of them in the United States today, leaders, are the one championing same-sex marriage. It has become law and legal, but someone in the name of Oscar Wilde died for it. Fellow Biafrans, evolution of freedom. You make history and make history happen. That is what Simon Èkpá, under the Biafra Republic government in exile, is doing. That history is what I and the entire cabinet and the supporters and sponsors are making today. As the fight for equality of women continued as far back as 1900, one of the leading feminist activists called Pankhurst incited a meeting to rebellion. Pankhurst was quoted by Nelson Mandela as supporting their militancy rebellion against apartheid. She said in a meeting, "I incite this meeting to rebellion." This particular stand by Emmeline Pankhurst is similar to a radical feminist message, that of militant protest and action. In her speech, she was made and become the leader of this Women's Social and Political Union. She herself set that particular union up in October 1912. And it stirred up the passion of all who heard it. Amongst other things, Pankhurst
Please let me refresh, please. 1 minute. Let me refresh. I don't know why this thing is hanging.